Hello, friends. Today's story is not just about love, it is about sacrifice, silence, and strength. This is the story of a woman who chose to protect her husband's dignity, even when the world was ready to shame her. A story where love did not speak loudly, but stood quietly, bravely, and unbreakably. In a small native community, a marriage built on respect faced a truth that could destroy a man's honor. And instead of letting him fall, she carried the burden herself. This is not a story of weakness. This is the story of a woman who became an example for generations. Now, let us go back to where it all began. The elders of the Red Mesa Plains said a marriage could be heard before it was ever seen, not with the ears, but with the heart. And long before Tyan Redhawk and Ayanna Softwind stood together before the circle, the people already felt it. Tyan was a man shaped by silence. Tall, broad-shouldered, his presence carried steadiness rather than force. When he spoke, he chose words carefully, as if each one mattered. Ayanna was the opposite, soft in voice, warm in smile, but her eyes held a depth that made even the elders listen when she spoke. On the day they married, the wind moved gently through the tall grass. Drums beat slow and steady, like the pulse of the earth itself. Tyan took Ayanna's hands and said, "I do not promise you riches or glory. I promise you respect, every day." Ayanna answered without hesitation, "And I promise you loyalty, not when it is easy, but when it is hardest." The elders nodded. That was enough. Their lodge stood near the cottonwood trees, close to the river. Life with Tyan was simple, honest, peaceful. At dawn, Ayanna ground corn while Tyan prepared for the hunt. At night, they sat by the fire, sharing stories and laughter that filled the small space with warmth. One evening, as sparks rose into the dark, Ayanna leaned against him and said with a smile, "Do you hear it?" Tyan frowned playfully. "Hear what?" "The future," she said. "Children laughing, feet running in and out of this lodge." Tyan smiled, but the smile did not reach his eyes. "Yes," he said quietly, "I hear it." Seasons passed, spring after spring. Hope remained, gentle but persistent. Ayanna never counted moons out loud. She never spoke her worry. She believed patience was a form of faith. But she noticed changes in her husband. Tyan lingered longer by the river, staring into water as if answers might rise from it. His laughter faded. At night, when Ayanna reached for him, his body felt distant, present but far away. One winter night, the cold pressed hard against the lodge walls. The fire burned low, shadows dancing across their faces. Ayanna watched Tyan sit stiffly, staring into the flames. "You are carrying something," she said softly, "and it is heavy." Tyan did not answer. She moved closer. "Whatever it is, you do not walk alone." His jaw tightened. His hands clenched so hard his knuckles whitened. "Ayanna," he said finally, his voice shaking, "if I speak, things will change." She met his eyes without fear. Truth always changes things. Silence destroys them. The fire cracked loudly. Tyan swallowed. "There is something you don't know about me." The words hung in the air, thick and dangerous. Ayanna felt her heart race, but she did not pull away. She reached for his hand, grounding him. "Then tell me," she said, "I married all of you, not just the parts that shine." Tyan's breath broke. He lowered his head, shoulders trembling, a man unraveling under a burden too long carried. Outside, the wind howled across the plains. Inside, a truth waited, ready to change everything. The fire had nearly burned itself to embers when Tyan Redhawk finally spoke again. "I have carried this since before I became your husband. he said, his voice rough, as if each word scraped against his chest. I prayed it would disappear. I hunted harder. I proved myself stronger. I thought if I became more of a man, the spirits would correct what is broken in me. Ayanna said nothing. She did not rush him. Silence, she knew, was sometimes the only safe place for truth to land. Tyan lifted his eyes at last. They were wet, ashamed. I cannot give you a child, he said. Not now, not ever. The words struck the space between them like a blade. Ayanna inhaled sharply, not because she was angry, but because she finally understood the weight she had felt pressing on him for so long. He continued quickly, as if afraid she might stop him. The healers confirmed it years ago. They told me quietly, like it was something poisonous. They said my body would never answer a woman's hope. His hands shook. A man who leaves no legacy is no man at all in our world. Ayanna reached for him instinctively, but he pulled back. Do not touch me yet, he said bitterly. You should hear everything before you decide if I am worth your hands. Her voice broke. Tyan! Let me finish, he pleaded. I see the way the elders look at us. I hear the whispers beginning. Soon they will blame you. They will say you are barren, that you are cursed, and I, his voice cracked completely, I will be the reason they shame you. He pressed his forehead into his palms. I was afraid you would hate me, afraid you would leave, afraid you would look at me and see a hollow man. The fire snapped sharply. Ayanna moved closer despite his resistance. She took his hands firmly, forcing him to look at her. You listen to me now, she said, her voice steady but trembling with emotion. I did not marry a womb. I married a soul. Tyan shook his head. You deserve a child, a future. And you deserve peace, she replied. Why did you think suffering alone was strength? Tears streamed down his face openly now. Because I am a man. Because men are taught to endure in silence. She pulled him into her arms then, his resistance collapsing instantly. He clung to her like a drowning man. Then this pain is ours, she whispered into his hair, not yours alone. They stayed that way for a long time, two bodies pressed together, breathing through grief that finally had space to exist. Eventually, Tyan pulled back slightly. The tribe will not see it this way. Ayanna nodded. I know. They will judge. They will search for someone to blame. I know, she repeated. And they will choose you. She did not deny it. Instead, she said something that startled him. Then we will face it together. But even as she spoke, Ayanna sensed something shifting beyond the lodge walls. She had noticed the quiet looks from the women, the pauses in conversation, the way an elder's gaze lingered on her belly a moment too long. That night, as Tyan finally slept, exhausted by confession, Ayanna lay awake staring at the lodge ceiling. She pressed her hand over her heart and whispered to the darkness, If the world demands a sacrifice, let me be strong enough to carry it. Outside, the wind moved through the plains like a warning, and somewhere beyond the firelight, the first whispers began to grow. The whispers did not arrive all at once. They crept in softly, like cold air through unseen cracks. Ayanna first noticed them in the way the women paused when she joined their circle. Conversations ended mid-sentence. Smiles faded too quickly. Pity, thinly veiled and heavy, settled on their faces. She has been married many seasons, one woman murmured, not bothering to lower her voice enough. The spirits have not blessed her, another replied. Ayanna kept her head high, but each word struck deep. She felt the weight of their stares, not cruel, not openly yet sharp enough to wound. Tyan noticed too.
His jaw tightened every time a glance lingered too long on his wife. But fear sealed his lips. Fear that if he spoke, he would lose everything he had spent his life building, his honor, his standing, his identity as a man. The elders called a council soon after. The lodge was filled with smoke and authority. Elder Grey Elk spoke first, his voice calm but cutting. "Many winters have passed," he said, eyes fixed on Ayanna. "A marriage without children weakens the roots of a people." Ayanna's hands rested calmly in her lap. Tayan sat beside her, silent as stone. Another elder leaned forward. "Sometimes the spirits close a woman's womb when her heart is not ready." The words were carefully chosen, accusation without accusation. Ayanna felt the room shift toward her. All eyes waited for denial. She looked at Tayan. His face was rigid, pale beneath his skin tone. He did not meet her gaze. She understood then, fully and painfully. The truth would destroy him. That night, she walked alone beyond the village. The moon hung low, pale and watchful. She knelt in the grass, pressing her palms to the earth. "Why must love demand sacrifice?" she whispered. Memories flooded her mind. Tayan's quiet kindness, his steady presence, the way he looked at her as if she were enough. She stood slowly. The next council, Ayanna spoke before anyone else could. "I carry the fault," she said clearly. "The failure is mine." The lodge erupted in murmurs. Tayan turned toward her, eyes wide with horror. "What are you saying?" he hissed under his breath. She did not look at him. She did not falter. "I was born without the gift to bear children. My husband has been patient and honorable." The elders nodded, satisfied. The question had found its answer. That night, Tayan confronted her, his voice shaking with fury and grief. "You let them blame you. You let them cut you down." She met his anger with calm. "I did not let them. I chose." "You chose my shame over your truth?" "I chose love, and love sometimes wears the face of silence." His voice broke. "They will never stop now." She reached for his face. "Then let them look at me. I can endure their eyes. I cannot endure losing you." Outside, the whispers grew louder. Inside, a woman made a choice that would change her fate forever.
The lie settled over the village like a heavy fog. By morning, everyone knew. Ayanna felt it the moment she stepped outside the lodge, the way eyes followed her, no longer curious but certain. Certainty was crueler than doubt. Children were pulled gently away from her path. Women offered tight smiles soaked in pity. Men lowered their heads, as if looking directly at her misfortune might stain them too. She walked through it all with her spine straight. Inside the lodge, Tayan paced like a trapped animal. His fists opened and closed, rage battling despair. "You stood there," he said hoarsely, "and handed them a knife." She remained seated, calm, mending a tear in his hunting cloak. Her hands were steady. "They were already holding one," she replied. "I only chose where it would fall." He stopped pacing. "You had no right." She looked up then, her eyes fierce. "I had every right. I am your wife." "They will never respect you again." "They never respected truth," she said quietly. "Only outcomes." Tayan knelt before her suddenly, voice cracking. "I will not let you be destroyed for me." She cupped his face. "You are not destroying me. The world is revealing itself. I am simply standing where love asks me to stand." The days that followed were colder. Ayanna was no longer invited to women's gatherings. Her place at ceremonies was shifted, subtle but unmistakable. Someone suggested she no longer prepare certain ritual foods just in case. Each small cruelty cut deeper than an open insult. At night,
Tayan watched her sit by the fire, her shoulders drawn inward. Guilt gnawed at him relentlessly. "Say the word," he begged one evening. "I will tell them everything." She shook her head slowly. "And then what? They will strip you of honor. They will say I trapped you in a broken marriage. At least you would be free." She laughed softly, without humor. "Freedom that costs your soul is not freedom." One night, as the fire burned low, he finally asked the question that haunted him. "Why are you carrying my shame?" Her answer came without hesitation. "Because love does not expose, it protects." His breath caught. She continued, voice steady but heavy with truth. "If the world needs someone to stand in the fire, let it be the one strong enough to survive it." Tayan covered his face, sobbing openly now. "I never asked this of you." "No, but I chose you, and choice carries responsibility." Outside, the village slept peacefully, unaware that a woman's dignity was being quietly sacrificed so their traditions could remain untouched. Days turned into weeks, the lie hardened into truth in the mouths of others. Ayana's name became a lesson spoken to young girls in warning tones. Do not end like her. Tayan watched the light dim behind her eyes. Her laughter came less often. Silence wrapped around her like armor and prison. One evening, as they sat together, he reached for her hand. "You are breaking," he said. She squeezed his fingers gently. "No, I am bending." But even as she said it, both of them felt the truth trembling beneath her words. Some sacrifices were not meant to last forever, and somewhere, unseen, fate was already preparing its response.
The tribe no longer spoke Ayana's name with warmth. It was spoken carefully now, like something fragile or contagious. "She is unfortunate," they said. "She was not chosen by the spirits. She is less." No one said the words to her face. They didn't have to. She felt them in the spaces where she was no longer welcomed, in the silence that followed her footsteps, in the way mothers gently turned their children away from her shadow. Ayana learned to walk alone. She gathered water at dawn before others arrived. She prepared food quietly, offering it without expectation. When ceremonies came, she stood at the edges, her presence tolerated but no longer celebrated. Still, she did not complain. But strength, when stretched too long, begins to ache. At night, when the lodge was quiet, Tayan watched her sit by the fire, staring into the flames as if searching for something she had misplaced inside herself. "You don't sing anymore," he said one evening. She smiled faintly. "The songs are resting." "They're fading," he whispered. That night he woke to the sound of her crying, soft, restrained, like someone trying not to disturb the world with their pain. He reached for her. "Stop," he pleaded. "This ends now. Tomorrow I will speak." She turned to him sharply. "No." Her voice startled him, not loud, but firm in a way he had never heard before. "You will not undo this," she said. "I chose this path. It is killing you." She placed her forehead against his. "No, what is killing me is watching you hate yourself." Tayan's voice broke. "Every insult meant for you strikes me instead." "Then let it," she replied. "If one of us must break, let it be me." The words crushed him. Days passed. Her smile grew thinner. Her eyes carried exhaustion deeper than sleeplessness. She moved like someone completing duties out of habit, not joy. One afternoon, an elder woman approached her, not with kindness but curiosity. "Do you regret staying?" the woman asked bluntly. "Many would have left." Ayana answered without looking up. "Leaving would have been easier. I chose what mattered." "What matters more than dignity?" the elder pressed. Ayana met her gaze. "Love that does not abandon."
The woman walked away without another word. That night, Tyan sat alone outside the lodge, staring at the stars. Guilt wrapped around him like a vice. He had been praised as a strong man, a respected hunter, a good husband, yet the woman beside him was quietly disappearing. "I am losing her," he whispered to the night, "and I am the reason." Inside, Ayana lay awake, listening to his footsteps outside. She pressed her hand to her chest, steadying her breath. "Endure," she told herself, "just endure." But endurance has limits. The next morning, as she stepped outside, she paused just for a moment when she heard laughter from another lodge, children running, a life she had once imagined. Something flickered in her eyes. Hope? Or grief? Tyan saw it, and for the first time since the lie was spoken, fear overtook him. Not of shame, not of truth, but of losing the woman who had given everything to protect him. He stood and followed her. Whatever silence had ruled them before could not survive much longer.
The change in Tyan Redhawk did not come with loud words or sudden declarations. It came in the way he stood. Where once he walked a step ahead of Ayana, he now walked beside her. Where once he lowered his gaze when whispers passed, he now lifted his chin, and when eyes turned toward her with judgment, they met his first. The tribe noticed. One morning, as Ayana prepared food near the communal fire, a woman muttered, "It is sad, a life without children." Before Ayana could respond, Tyan spoke. "Sadness lives in cruelty," he said evenly, "not in a woman's worth." Silence fell like a stone. Ayana looked at him, startled. He did not look at her. He kept his eyes on the woman who had spoken. There was no anger in his voice, only certainty. From that day forward, he did not allow her to stand alone. When elders questioned traditions, he answered with dignity. When pity was offered, he refused it. He made no confessions, told no truths, but he guarded her name as if it were sacred. One elder challenged him openly. "Why defend what the spirits have denied?" Tyan replied, "The spirits did not deny her, people did." At night, they spoke quietly by the fire, their voices low but honest. "You are changing," Ayana said one evening. "I am learning. I thought silence made me strong. I was wrong." She studied his face. "And what have you learned?" "That love should never hide behind fear." Her eyes filled with tears she did not wipe away. Still, the weight she carried did not vanish overnight. Some wounds cut too deep for quick healing. Tyan saw how she tired easily now, how her gaze drifted, how her laughter came late, if at all. One night, he took her hands in his and said the words that had been burning inside him. "You saved me," he whispered. "You carried my shame so I could breathe. But who will save you?" Ayana smiled sadly. "I don't need saving." "That is not true," he said, his voice trembling. "You are strong, but even strong people should not bleed forever." She looked into the fire. "If I stop, everything I protected will fall." "Then I will hold it," he said fiercely. "You should never have carried this alone." For the first time in many moons, she leaned fully into him, not as a shield, not as a sacrifice, but as a woman who was tired. The next morning, something unexpected happened. A child arrived at the edge of the village, thin, frightened, alone. No parents, no claim, just wide eyes and a trembling body wrapped in dust and silence. The tribe gathered, uncertain. No one stepped forward. Ayana did. She knelt before the child, her voice gentle. "You are safe." The child clung to her without hesitation. Tyan felt something shift, deep, unmistakable. The elders watched closely. Murmurs rose, not of judgment this time, but of curiosity. Ayana's face changed in that moment. Light returned to her eyes. Not the old dream, but something deeper, truer. Tyan knew then. Fate had not denied them, it had redirected them. That night, as the child slept between them, Tyan stared at the fire and made a silent vow. No more silence, no more fear. Soon, very soon, the truth would be spoken. But first, love would finish what it had begun.
The child did not speak for 3 days. He ate slowly, as if afraid the food might vanish. He slept curled in on himself, flinching at sudden sounds. His eyes, dark and too old for his small face, followed Ayana everywhere. She did not rush him. Each morning she set aside a small bowl of food just for him. Each night she sat near him while he slept, humming low songs she had not sung in many seasons, songs she thought were gone forever. Tyan watched in silence. He had seen his wife endure cruelty without breaking, but this gentleness was something else entirely. It was not sacrifice, it was instinct. One evening the child finally spoke. His voice was barely louder than the fire. "Will they send me away?" Ayana answered without pause. "No." "How do you know?" She touched her chest. "Because you are already here." The child nodded, as if that was all the truth he needed. Word spread quickly through the village. She has taken in a child. A barren woman raising another's blood? Why would she invite more pain? But something unexpected happened. The child laughed. Not loudly, not at first, but the sound traveled, soft, uncertain, real. It echoed through the lodge, and people paused when they heard it. Some turned back, some stayed longer than they meant to. Ayana's hands were always busy now, braiding the child's hair, cleaning scraped knees, telling stories at night. Her eyes, once dulled by endurance, began to shine again. Tyan felt it like a wound reopening, then healing properly this time. One afternoon, an elder woman approached the lodge. She stood stiffly, clearly uncomfortable. "The child needs winter clothing," she said. "I have extra." Ayana accepted it with a bow of gratitude. No pride, no bitterness. That was when the tribe began to change. Not because someone announced it, but because they felt it. They saw how the child ran toward Ayana when frightened, how he called for her in the night, how he held her hand like it was the center of the world. "She mothers him as if he came from her own body," someone whispered. Tyan corrected them quietly. "He came from her heart." More children followed, another orphan, another forgotten soul. Ayana welcomed them all. One night, as the lodge filled with sleeping breaths, Tyan spoke through tears. "They will remember you for this." She smiled softly. "I don't need remembering. I need them safe." He shook his head in awe. "You were never empty." She looked at him, then truly looked. "And you were never broken." Outside, the tribe gathered often now near their lodge, not to judge, but to watch, to learn. They began to understand what the elders never taught them. Motherhood is not only carried in the body, it is carried in the soul. One evening, as the sun sank red over the plains, Tyan stood at the edge of the village. He watched Ayana surrounded by children, laughing, guiding, alive. Shame rose in his chest, but not the kind that cripples, the kind that demands truth. He clenched his fists, heart pounding. "Soon," he promised himself, "soon I will speak." Because the world deserved to know, the woman they once pitied had reshaped their understanding of love. And her story, born from silence, was no longer meant to stay there.
The council fire burned higher than usual that night. People gathered without being summoned. Elders sat in silence. Women stood shoulder to shoulder. Children lingered at the edges, sensing something important was about to unfold. Tyan Redhawk stepped forward. His voice did not rise, but it carried. "For many seasons," he began, "you have spoken of strength, of honor, of what makes a man worthy and a woman complete." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. He turned not to the elders, not to the people, but to Ayana Soft Wind, standing quietly among the children she had claimed with love. "This woman," he said, voice breaking, "saved my life." Gasps followed. I let her carry a lie that should have been mine. I allowed the world to shame her while I hid behind silence. Ayana's eyes widened. "Tyann!" He raised a hand gently. "No, my silence has already cost too much." He faced the elders. "The truth is this. The childlessness you blamed on her was mine." The night froze. Some elders looked away, others bowed their heads. Shame moved through the circle like a slow wind. "She protected my honor when I was too afraid to protect hers," Tyann continued. "She taught me that courage is not loud. Sometimes it kneels. Sometimes it endures. Sometimes it loves when the world is cruel." Ayana stepped forward, tears streaming freely now. "I chose that silence," she said softly, "not because I am weak, but because love demanded it." An elder woman stood. Her voice trembled. "We were wrong." Another added, "We judged what we did not understand." Tyann knelt before his wife, not as a gesture of submission, but of reverence. "You are not an example of silence," he said. "You are an example of courage." The children ran to her side, clinging to her skirts, her hands, her heart. The tribe watched and learned. From that night on, Ayana's name was spoken differently, not with pity, with respect. Young women sought her counsel. Mothers told her story to their daughters, not as a warning, but as a lesson. Years later, when her hair turned silver and the children she raised stood tall, the elders said, "She did not just build a family. She rebuilt our understanding of womanhood." And so her legacy lived on, not carved into stone, but carried in changed hearts.
This is not merely a story of marriage. It is a story of choice. A story of a woman who stood in the fire of judgment so the one she loved would not burn. A woman who carried blame she did not deserve, not out of weakness, but out of devotion. A woman who proved that silence, when chosen with courage, can be louder than any shout. She taught a tribe and a world that motherhood is not confined to the body, that love can create family where blood cannot, that dignity is not granted by society, but claimed through sacrifice and compassion. She was called barren, yet she gave life to the broken, the abandoned, the unseen. She was called unfortunate, yet she reshaped fate with her hands and her heart. And when the truth finally rose, it did not diminish her sacrifice, it illuminated it. Because of her, men learned that strength does not hide behind fear. Because of her, women learned they are not measured by what they produce, but by what they protect, endure, and transform. A woman is not defined by what she gives birth to, but by what she is willing to carry for love, and what she is brave enough to heal. Some women do not just build families, they build dignity, they build courage, they build legacies that live far beyond their own names. This is her legacy, and it belongs to every woman who has ever chosen love over applause, truth over comfort, and courage over fear.